Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Today I have an opportunity to work on one of the reels that Bobby has sent in to me. Bobby sends a lot of reels in that he finds at flea markets and the like. And well, some of them don't work, but they're nice reels, and he asked me to service them. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And this one's got a note on it that says it's a Penn 9 with the worm gear that won't turn. The worm that won't turn. Here you go. Well, there are a lot of reasons why fishing reels fail. We're going to try and figure out which one is the cause of this. We're going to take the reel apart, we're going to service it, and we're going to identify that problem. And well, we'll show you some of the things that you need to do in diagnosis to figure out what it is, and well, see if you can't correct that. So we'll start by removing the exterior pieces and parts. As I do, I want to encourage you to subscribe to my channel, particularly if you like the art of reel repair, if you like working on fishing reels, maybe servicing your own, or just learning about them in terms of, well, the manufacturers and the use of the reels and when they were made and the like. So this one has got the burgundy side plates on it. It's a Penn Peerless number 9. This one was made approximately in the 1970s. This one has a little bit of a different look and feel to it than the Penn 109. It's a completely different architecture. And those of you that saw my upcoming projects video the other day, you realize that I've got 10 reels that Blake sent in that are a combination of Penn 9s and Penn 109s. And well, this is a good video to show you all how to service these. I'm going to start by just kind of cleaning the parts up as I take them off. We know we've got a functional problem here. We will get to that, but I like to kind of go in some kind of an organized pattern, and when I do, one of them involves taking them off, cleaning them up, and then taking the pieces and parts and putting them into a parts tray. I'm using a fast food container here as my parts tray, and it helps me keep myself organized for when it's time to reinstall. Next up, then, we would remove the star adjuster. This is a star drag fishing reel, and well, it just needs to be cleaned. So some of the good advantages, Bobby, I think, is in Tennessee, and one of the advantages is, well, they don't deal with salt water there. So a lot of the reels that he brings in don't have the same level of corrosion or boat rash, if you will, that we have here on the East Coast. Next, let's test one of the things that could be the cause of this. That would be the line guide assembly. So we're going to remove this line guide. Best way to do that, well, I was thinking we would be able to do that, but we're not moving this down. I'm going to have to take the side plate off. This needs to be on the other side to pop it out the way I was trying to do that, and well, it's not moving at the moment, so we'll continue. We'll take this off to do that. All right, those covers and side plate screws go into my parts tray. You do need to notice on these that the side plate screws are a different size. The ones that go through the cross posts are long, and the ones that go through the reel seat, these two, are shorter. That's because if you use the long one in the reel seat, it would protrude through the back end of that reel seat, and your line potentially could catch on those, causing a snap off or a fraying of your line. So there's 2 small screws. Make sure they go into the reel seat. That reminds me, it's a cue, if you will, to tell you to take pictures as you disassemble your reel. Use your cell phone camera or other image capturing device to get there. That'll help you to understand the sequence that the parts came off in, and well, what needs to be done in terms of getting to the point where it's reinstalled. Well, here's the answer here, one of the answers. This is frozen. This should be turning, which means that in all likelihood this pawl was not set properly on the way in. So we're going to try and remove the cap and remove the pawl. What I fear when I find this is somebody's tried to crank this and broken off the teeth of the idler gear, which is the drive mechanism for this reel, when it jammed up. Because if it was just this and the idler gear was intact, what we would find is that we would have a reel that wouldn't turn. This one's turning, but the worm gear is not turning, which says that we've got that breakage. All right, take a look here. We've got all kinds of rust or old debris on this, right there, right on the shoulder. So what's happening is this one comes to the corner and can't turn the corner and come back. And that's why this one is kind of seized there. So I would say this reel was used, stored wet. The rust came in on this pawl and caused the issue. While you're working on the pawl, make sure that those 2 points on the pawl are equal and that they're clean. All right, this one can be reused with a little bit of effort. We need to get the rust off. I'm doing that with a piece of steel wool. And, well, that line guide is got a little bit of an issue with it as well. Yeah, we're rusted in place there. So one of the things I want to do at the moment is just put some penetrating oil on that piece, set that off to the side. Well, it's going to be a general tune-up too, and I'm thinking that the back end of this reel here has got a broken, it's got a broken idler gear, which is going to turn the worm drive. So we're going to have to go in there and replace that as well. Let's do that to start. We're going to take this whole reel apart now. And the reason we're going to do that is, well, as clean as it is on some spots, it's not as clean all around. One of the things you want to do with your reel surface is clean it up. You want to remove any contamination, any dry grease, any dirt, other obstacles, broken line things. There's a lot of things that can happen with reels. You want to make sure it's nice and clean. If you're going to take the time to fix it mechanically, you might as well take the time to do your best on the cosmetic side of it as well. Okay. Now, we're going to hope that that penetrating oil over time frees that worm gear up. If it doesn't, I have a replacement, and these replacements are getting harder and harder to find because of the age of the reel. And of course, Penn's not making this reel any longer, and they're not making the replacement parts. So as those inventories of the replacement parts become exhausted, well, the parts become unavailable. All right, I'm just going to put those two in the corner here. And to get to this, we're going to want to remove the click ratchet. That would be this piece. And there's a screw on this. It's a little copper band. Again, take pictures so you know where you're going with this. And we'll show you why this one failed in a moment. We are going to remove the screw that's holding that down. And we're going to notice that there's teeth missing here, right there. Well, this is driven by the small ratchet on the back of your spool. When it gets to this point right here where the teeth are missing, well, that's just going to spin and spin and spin, and it's not going to turn the gear because those teeth are missing. When you have a breakage like that, you need to check because those teeth went somewhere when they broke off. So check that they're not lodged into that metal gear. And then what we want to do is we want to remove the side plate trim ring, remove the main gear that's going to drive the worm gear. That's threaded in. There's a little nut cap here. And you want to check all of the teeth here as well. Well, I'm not seeing any in there, so I'm not quite sure where they came from, where they went to, but I do know that, well, they're missing in action. They might be on my table here. Well, fortunately for Bobby, I have a replacement gear. I ordered a few of these the other day, and I have one, and we're going to be able to use that one. This is a nylon gear. or a Teflon gear or plastic gear or one of those. They don't need to be oiled or greased. You could put a little bit of oil on them. So let's go ahead and put this back in. This one you can put some grease on. It's metal. And again, it's going to interface with the plastic one, so I guess being a hypocrite here. But we'll get that back on. I don't want to get some on the back of this one because it's sliding in the case there. This is the case screw, so we're going to put that back in as well. Now, if Blake is watching, this is exactly what we're going to be doing with your reels, Blake. We're going to find out what's going on in them, and we're going to try and correct those issues. Okay, now we can put this back in. It's going to seat with the new gear, and now you'll notice as we turn this that gear is turning. Well, that's what's going to make the difference here in terms of being able to drive that worm gear. And if you use the spool, as I was saying before, the spool will come in here, and now you'll see that worm gear. Whoops, put the wrong side on. That was a whoops. Turn it, and you'll see that the worm gear drive is now turning, which is what it should be doing. All right, let's put this back together. The next piece to go back in is the click ratchet. It mounts over two studs, and then up top here on the click tongue, you need to separate this so that it grabs both sides of the tongue as you go to install. Click that in, place this back in. So we've got two issues here. We've got an issue where the carrier, the line guide assembly, has frozen into the worm drive. When that became frozen, somebody tried to crank out of that as the answer to making it free up, and they snapped the teeth on the idler gear. So kind of a little bit of everything there. We saw dirt on the pole. That's a cause for the line guide not working. We've seen the freezing of the line guide to the worm gear. That's extremely rare, but it did happen. And well, I've taken a corrective action on both. Okay, put the trim ring back on. If you find yourself a little bit out of center on these, just use a pick, run it into the hole, and that should center that the hole as needed. All right. Again, as I mentioned, we're going to take care of the cosmetics on this as well, so we'll use a piece of steel wool. There's a little bit of pitting going on here. This is fluoro steel wool. It's a buffing level steel wool. It is not a very abrasive one. We're going to install the posts. That's the wrong post. There's a post with a slot that belongs in the front. That's where the top of the line guide assembly will go. So let's install that first. And buff out the film off of this one. And normally you would use something like a kitchen scrubby pad, a little bit of rod and reel cleaner, but this has got some tarnish on there that goes beyond what that's going to be able to remove. Find your two small screws for that reel seat. Let's go ahead and put those in. And I like to get at least one of those posts on before I try to mount the reel seat because it is a balancing act. That one's in. This one's in. And again, this is a repetitive process here. Well, if you have any questions on this reel or any reel in particular, if you want to leave those questions in the comment section, I will try to answer those questions for you. and I'll do my best to get you on track for servicing your reel. Or sometimes, like this morning, I just got asked the question, what do I think of Avid reels? And well, if you're looking for opinions, I guess I can answer those as well. I like them, by the way, for those of you that are wondering. They're simple, they're straightforward, they're made with high caliper components, and they last. They're durable. All right, one more set here, and we can move on to doing the gear side of this while that penetrating wire is doing its thing. This has got a slot in it. Again, it's going to hold the top end of that line guide mechanism, and it needs to be faced at an angle pointing downwards, about there. I'm going to leave this a little loose. We'll finalize that when it's time to put the line guide assembly back in. Okay. This one's got a little bit of tarnish on it. Now, I know Bobby said he gets to Virginia. It's quite possible that this reel was found in Virginia, and maybe it was used in the water, salt water. I don't know. It's always interesting if reels could talk. All right. Kind of cleaned up on that. We're good. Good. How's this doing? This is still a little tight. We'll get it fixed before we're done. Maybe another application of the 40 there. Let that sit off to the side. To service your gear side, this is pretty much standard issue Penn. So if you can work on one of these reels from this generation, pretty much work on them all. This is on the smaller side of the Penn reels, but the architecture for it, whether it's a Seaboy or a Beachmaster or a Long Beach or a Jigmaster, they're all pretty much the same architecturally. Pieces are bigger or smaller, and there are some nuances for each of the models, but for the most part, if you can work on one, you can work on one. This one has a bridge assembly that holds the gears with the drag washers and the like in there. You have a jack, you have an eccentric, the yoke is underneath. It's held in by 4 bridge screws, and you have an eccentric spring that mounts to the corner. Let's take this off. Do the service on this side. These are nice reels. A lot of folks like these. As I mentioned, I just got a package of these in from Chicago. They're being used for trolling. And well, you can't go wrong with these as long as you like level line reels. They're very fun reels to use as long as you keep them serviced. All right, let's go. There's 2 screws that belong below the bottom. That's the bottom. They're fully threaded. The ones that are partially threaded actually go through the yoke springs. So make sure that you note which holes you're taking those out of. We're going to close this up now. There's a spring underneath here. This is a flat spring. I said 1970s, but the flat spring architecture ended in the end of the 1950s, so that's a little unusual. Okay, this is your anti-reverse dog. This is your jack and your yoke spring. Let's get those out. And then we have 2 yoke springs, which go into my case. Make sure that your case is clean. This one is very clean. There's just a little bit of dried grease in there, which can be removed with a paper towel. To service this, you want to just put a little bit of grease onto that back bearing. And onto the eccentric. And you need to make sure that the yoke is clean. There's some dried grease on here, so we'll take that off. Same thing with the jack. The jack happens to be clean. And while we're at it, let's move a couple of these parts off to the parts tray so that we don't lose them. All right, we can. This is pretty straightforward. You can start the reassembly of this. We have 2 springs that are your yoke springs. They go into the cavities, one on each side of that main bearing. Check your pinion gear. This one is in good condition. It's clean, so you don't need to clean it. If you did, you can use a bristle brush or something, or a pick to get the dirt out from there. This one is in good condition. Next up, we want to get our yolk. Put a little bit of grease on each side of the yolk so that it turns nice and easily. And this yolk is what's going to drive the spool. It's going to take the energy from the main gear, transfer it to the spool, and when you install it, you need to put the slotted side facing out, because that's how it's going to use the slot to engage the spool. Then just work your jack around the stud on your eccentric, and that is set up for work, if you will. Okay, we want to remove the main gear. There's a lot of kind of rusty dirt here too. So I'm going to go to a wire brush here. I'm going to just pull that over the gear sleeve here. Knock off whatever it is that's kind of making it hard to bring this up. I suspect these are very old drag washers in here. They're going to need to be replaced. Yeah, we have a broken drag washer on our wheel seat here, and I'm going to guess that the ones inside are probably the older leather washers that are also going to need to be replaced. So if you don't service your reel on a regular basis, one of the issues you're going to have is that the washers, well, these are actually in good condition. That's kind of odd, but and there's oil on them, so there you go. If you don't service these on a regular basis, they will dry out. When they dry out, they become brittle and crack. So what I'm going to guess happened here was somebody was putting the oil into the gear sleeve, as they should, but that oil wasn't going beyond the main gear. One more thing you want to check. I'm getting a little dangerous here leaving these parts on my bench, but push your pin that's holding your gear sleeve through. Pull that up and out, and make sure that your gear sleeve is cleaned as well. Particularly on reels that haven't been serviced in a while, the old grease accumulates in these two slots, and when they accumulate in those two slots, they dry and slow down the cranking ability of the reel. So a little bit of grease on there. Spin that back on the shaft. Bring your pin back in. Now we can reset. I have to shut the camera off for a minute here and go get a backing washer. Okay, so we're back together with this. I just went and found my backing washer. That's a 4-155 for anybody who's playing along on the parts line. We have re-greased the main gear, and now we alternate the washers that are the fabric or the leather or whatever the component washer is that you're using with the metals. And the metals have two that are rectangular in the center. They go high and low in the stack. This is a traditional 6-washer set. Then we put our second drag washer in. Now there's one that has points on both sides. That's called an eared washer. That goes next. Those eared washers need to sit in the slots in the main gear. And this is a smaller main gear. They may be hard to see, but they are there. And then the last of the metals go in. Then there's a cap washer. That's next. And then we have the gear sleeve spacer. That's the last one that goes on. And I'm just working to get a little bit of this off. There we go. This one is particularly corroded. So that usually means that it's been in salt water. There we go. Just a little utility knife will knock that off. All right. This is what the star adjuster is going to press down on to give you your tension on the drag washers. All right. Next up then is to install the main gear assembly. We're going to press down on the yoke assembly, bring your main gear assembly in, and rotate the bridge so that it's holding down the pinion gear. Find one of the screws that's got the full thread on it. Bring that in from underneath. This is going on the right side as you're looking at it. And with these flat spring assemblies, you need to find the stud in that side case. It's going to wrap under it. One part is going to lodge on top of the anti-reverse dog. The other is going to lodge inside the side plate. We'll show you that in a moment as soon as I get this set. One of the problems is my fingers are big. There you go. So that's the way it is set up. The one part of the spring is on top of the dog. The other part is resting on the side case. Bring that around. Make sure that your pinion gear comes through. And give that a few turns to tighten it up. Don't tighten it all the way. You need a little bit of play to get the other screws into the bridge sleeve. Next one, I like to go on an X pattern here, so we're going to go up top with this one. I'm going to take the fully threaded one below. And then the last one, that's the partially threaded, goes through the spring on the other side. Well, we're getting to the point now where hopefully that penetrating oil has done its work, has freed up that rust that was on the one side, and well, see what we can do there. A little bit of grease onto the face of the jack here. Just make sure it's working the way it should. We'll bring our other plate over now. We're going to do the same thing. Run a pick through there. Make sure that you're centered for those holes. Press that into the side. The spool is clean. I want to put a little bit of grease onto that axle shaft on both sides. Bring the axle shaft in. Put a little bit onto the bearing in the back there. Notice I didn't get some in there before. Got it in there now. Bring this in. Bring your side plate over. And what I like to do is just start the screw on the back side opposite where that line guide is going to go. That's just going to help me hold the side plate while I maneuver the guide shield in from the other side. The guide shield has two sides. One is longer than the other. The long side belongs in the back. It has 4 studs. They go into the holes in the case. So again, short side installs forward, and the points belong in the case. And once you do that, get another screw. And bring that to the front. You can either put it in the real seat or put it in the one below. Remember, we're leaving that one up top floating a little bit because we want to align that one with the top end of the line guide assembly. All right, when you do that, then you can come back and tighten the other side, and then you can kind of release your grip because you will have it set up pretty well at that point. Take the 2 or 3 remaining screws. I'm going to tighten down the 2 that hold the real seat. They're the shorter screws. And then there's one that's the longer screw, which is going to go up top. We'll get it started, but again, we're going to leave that loose until we solve this issue with the line guide itself. Hopefully that penetrating oil has done its work. And all right, let's see what happens. Yeah, there you go. All right. So, okay, good. We're able to work it off. We can see where the rust is. And the first thing you want to do is check the grooves of that worm gear now. You want to make sure that they didn't get eaten up or corroded by the old rust. In this case, I'm going to use a metal brush. This looks to be a stainless steel one. I want to get all that old rust off of here. I like to leave a paper towel on the bench so that the grease and the light doesn't transfer to my next project. In this case, I'm doing a good job of shredding the paper towel there. Maybe I need to bring that off for this. Okay. That seems to be pretty good. Let's see if I can't. There seems to be a burr or two on there, so I'm going to use this steel wool again. Try to just knock that off. I wonder what happened here, because you usually don't see corrosion forming on this piece. It certainly has here, though. One more piece of this. Now I'm going to use the penetrating oil to flush the grooves here, just in case a strand or two of that steel wool kind of lodged in. I think we're in good shape. Let's see how we do on this side. Carrier's clean. Yeah, we got a nice free movement again now. All right. Seems to be a little bit of stickiness going right there. All right, we'll try it with the pole-in. Next up, you want to figure out which side is the drive side. That's the one with the two flats. That's going to go into that gear that we set. So if that's going that way, then you need to put the line guide in this way for the front. If you turn it around, you're not going to seat into that gear. I'm going to use my penetrating oil here. I'm going to take that pawl that we did and the pawl cap now. We cleaned the pawl up and insert that into the pawl cap with some oil. I'm turning it. I'm making sure that that pawl can turn free and easy in here. Now I'm going to take the pawl, and we have to thread that in. And you need to be careful how to set this, because you don't necessarily get the pawl teeth into the worm gear right away. So just work it like I'm doing here, step by step. What's going to happen eventually is you're going to tighten this maybe a 1/16 or a 1/4 inch turn each time, and eventually you're going to land where the teeth are actually into the groove, and you'll be able to tighten this cap all the way down. There we go. We finally got it. All right. So now it's turning free and easy. I'm not feeling those kick-ups. What you want to do is move this all the way over to your right-hand side. When you go to insert that, there is limited clearance here, so you may have to loosen the side plate to do that, but know that you can do it this way. And we'll grab this other side bearing now. I can put a little grease in there. And let's put that in, center that hole. Bring that down now. Okay, I'm going to leave that a little bit light because I want to make sure that we do this correctly. We've left this loose. It's not loose enough. This one side should be able to turn a little bit. And you want to make sure that you can seat that line guide into there before you tighten this the rest of the way. Now if that's binding, when we go to put this all together, you can loosen this and turn it forward or backward, depending on what you need to do. Right now, it looks like we're in the right place. All right, let's grab our star adjuster, put that on. Now if you didn't oil or if you didn't lubricate the shaft, we took that shaft off the main bridge post. If you didn't do that as part of your service, you can put oil in here. And that will help to keep that bottom post from seizing up. Let's put our adjuster screw on. The handle screw is on. Now you need to align the scallop on your nut with the hole. Tighten it, and then bring that little set screw in. and install that set screw. There's only one more thing to do here. That's to make sure that we have the line guide seated and that the whole reel works. This has been quite a journey. The journey has happened because the reel's line guide was not operating properly. We went inside and found out that we had a broken idler gear. It's missing teeth, so that when the spool was turning, the teeth weren't there to turn this one, to turn the line guide. But more importantly, we found out the line guide was rusted onto the worm gear. So this is kind of chicken or egg. My guess is this got rusted on here. Somebody tried to crank out of it, sheared the teeth over there, but that was the core of the issue. All right, let's put this reel into gear. And it is turning. So one of the things we want to do now is press over. Make sure that it's firmly seated in the worm drive. And then tighten down the nut here. And now we want to adjust our spool. There's too much play in the spool here side to side. So you want to tighten the adjuster. And this one seems pretty much frozen in place as well. I'm going to use a channel grip pliers for this. So you need to adjust this so that there's slight side-to-side play, but not a lot of side-to-side play. There you go, got it now. All right, Bobby, you got a nice smooth operating reel here. It's a beauty now. It's working. It's working. Okay, there you go. That's how to take apart, diagnose the problem with that line guide, give it a second chance by replacing the idler gear, freeing up the rust, cleaning out the shoulders on the pawl, and getting this reel to work again. Just test those drag washers, make sure that they're working, and then back the drag washers off so that you don't compress the greases and oils out of it. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that. To our first responders and essential personnel, thank you for all it is that you do and your dedication to career and to task of public safety. And well, everybody, these are lessons learned, and I hope I hope these were beneficial to you in terms of why this particular fishing reel failed, and well, how to give it a second chance. This is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Have a great day.